Today we're taking a quick look at an air conditioner that they said was just not cooling very well. So I threw my gauges on. You can see we're running 110 on the low and 317 on the high, and I was like, you know, 36 degrees VSAT is really not bad. It's about 80 degrees outside right now. So 96 for an LSAT is also not bad, because you don't want that number to be more than 30 degrees above ambient. Taking a reading on our line coming out here. That temperature is 85.9 degrees, so that's not too bad either. But then I looked at our subcooling. You know, 10, 11, 12 degrees of subcooling is also not bad. Then I was like, wait a minute, those pressures seem good for 410A, but this thing is not 410A. I just realized this thing's actually R22, and I had my gauges set for 410A because these pressures are just wild. So now we're going to go to R22. Now we've got some issues. So according to, if this thing is R22, we're having like 47 to 50 degrees of subcooling, which is insane. 63 degrees for our vapor saturation temperature, which right now the dew point is like 75 degrees because it's super humid and super hot. So it's not surprising at all that this is condensing liquid. But this thing is not having the cooling capacity that it's supposed to have at all. These pressures are way too high on the low side, and these pressures are way too high on the high side. So we're going to go and look at the expansion valve, because it's potentially the expansion valve that's causing these issues. And you'll notice that our pressures are fluctuating. So it's dropping down to like 300, and then it's going up to like 325 almost, and then back down to 300 something. So I'm thinking that it's probably our expansion valve. It's kind of acting like the expansion valve is letting too much refrigerant through, which is causing these high low side pressures, or the thing is severely overcharged, because our subcooling is also just insane. So here we are down in the basement. It looks like there's a fixed regulating device. I didn't really look at the tonnage of the unit, but I think it's a 2-ton. It's looking like, just see there, just has a capillary. So there's something wrong. So I'm kind of thinking it's either overcharged or just doesn't have enough airflow through the coil. But I can see daylight through a lot of the coil. I'm thinking it's not the coil. I'm kind of thinking the system might be overcharged. So we're going to try to let a little bit of refrigerant out of the system, see if that decreases our pressure. Because basically, in a system like this with a fixed regulating device, if there's too much refrigerant just pushing through, it's going to raise your low side pressures and raise your vapor saturation temperature as a consequence, which is going to cause the system to not cool properly. So we're going to drain a little bit off, see if it fixes our pressures very much. And we might brush out this stuff here in the coil too first before we do that, make sure that's not a contributing factor. So this is my temporary holding cylinder. I'm just gonna, it's completely empty right now, and I'm just gonna drain some off. We're gonna see if that affects our pressures. Lowered our pressure a little bit, not much though. Not sure why the air conditioner just turned off. So frankly, I'm not sure how it was even bringing on the air conditioner to begin with. This thing, I can't tell if it's even like working right now. But we have our Y wire coming from the thermostat, going to that terminal all by itself, and then into this board. But then the one going to the outdoor unit and the one going to the furnace are both on this YO terminal right here. So I think we need to put the Y wire from the thermostat with those also. And then when the thermostat gives a call, it'll pull in the contactor and it'll tell the furnace that it's calling for cooling, and then it'll actually run. Found another contributor to the problem. The house is actually at like 80 degrees, so maybe the high vapor saturation temperature isn't to be unexpected, but the thermostat was still sending the power through. And yeah, GG, blue to blue. Look down here though. This is not a two-stage cooling system. And so this Y wire that's on Y1 should actually be on YY2. So I think the furnace thought that the house temperature was satisfied because it tried to switch it into second stage cooling and never actually did. So I just closed the door. Outdoor unit came on like it was supposed to, and the blower came on high. So I think that was our problem. Now that I look at it more, maybe they should all be on the Y terminal instead of the YO. But we'll just leave it on the YO because basically that's just working as a wire nut. Then we'll go back outside and continue troubleshooting our system out there. That right there actually took care of a lot of the problem, because now the furnace is actually running at a high speed like it's supposed to. So our vapor saturation temperature is 50. Subcooling is really high, so we're gonna still dump a little off. It says this is 90 degrees. If I can believe it. I might put another probe on there just to make sure I'm not getting a false reading, but this line's a lot colder than it was earlier. That's good, and it's actually like pulling heat out now. Earlier it wasn't really moving any heat, which is really weird. So a combination of it being overcharged and having low airflow because the furnace didn't know the air conditioner was running must be what led to the system having such a weird combination of pressures. Good, our subcooling is coming down and our VSAT is coming down. I think we're going to be in good shape. Just have to drain a little off. Yeah, it's cooling now. Yeah, looks like my temperature probes agree pretty well, so we're gonna say that's actually a true subcooling reading. So we're just going to continue to dump some of this off. I don't know why it's so overcharged. Yeah, this thing's actually pulling heat now. Weird. Nice. So I drained off like almost 5 pounds of refrigerant, and our pressures are finally starting to look good again. 117 for an LSAT when it's like 80 degrees outside is acceptable. Still kind of high. VSAT's getting a little low. Subcooling is still reading kind of high, but I kind of need to clean the coil. Probably should just clean the coil next, but for the most part, I think we got this one solved. It was a combination of overcharged and like no airflow because the furnace just was running with the fan on. The furnace didn't even know if the air conditioning was running, and I don't even know how it was like telling the air conditioner to run at all. So we're running about 75 on the return. So yeah, now I got it actually in the airstream. It's quite a bit colder. So that's about 20 degrees drop, which is what we want to see. About 15 actually. But that'll be a lot better. So really, I gotta say that was one of the most interesting troubleshooting like calls I've ever been on, because it just, I don't know, it was just really weird. Because at first I was thinking, you know, these pressures are great if it was 410A. But it was actually R22, fixed regulating device, so only pressures and the charge could have anything to do with it. But since it was overcharged and the furnace didn't know the air conditioner was running and was therefore just running a low speed on fan, air conditioner pressures weren't that crazy. Like, they weren't like 400 psi like you'd expect if you put, you know, 4 extra pounds into a system that really only holds like 4 pounds to begin with. So it just made a really interesting combination. So now that the furnace is communicating with the thermostat and the air conditioner properly, so when the thermostat sends a call down on the Y wire, it's bringing on the condensing unit and it's telling the furnace to bring on the blower, it's actually running properly. Because, yeah, before, I'm sure the system was probably freezing up to begin with and seemed low, so someone added refrigerant, and they shouldn't have added refrigerant because the fan speed was actually wrong, because the furnace didn't know the air conditioner was running. Yeah, just an interesting combination of things. These are the calls that when I fix them, I feel really happy because they're just kind of fun, you know? It's just kind of like, you know, when it's just a capacitor, again, it's like, oh yeah, it looks like your capacitor exploded, we'll go ahead and change that out. But yeah, no, there was a lot of weird stuff going on with that system. But now that we got them corrected, I think they're going to be okay. So, anyway, hope that you enjoyed. Talk to you later.